Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer from Forge College. If you tuned in for our previous lesson on proof of stake and alternative approaches, you know we spent a lot of time pouring digital concrete and installing heavy cryptographic steel doors to build what we hoped was an impenetrable vault. But today we're going to talk about security, attacks, and trade-offs in consensus. Basically, we're looking at exactly how cunning attackers actually try to rob that vault.
So here is a bit of a provocative question to kick things off. How do you break a blockchain? Seriously, I want you to shift your mindset for a minute here. Take off the architect hat and put on the master thief mask. Don't worry, your secret is safe with us. Because securing a decentralized network, it isn't just about writing bug-free code. It's this incredibly delicate, constantly shifting balance of economic incentives, network throughput, and decentralization. We absolutely have to understand the vulnerabilities in this foundation if we ever want to properly secure it. So think of today's explainer as your blueprint for a high-stakes heist movie.
Okay, let's look at our blueprint for today. We'll start with consensus security, meet the threat actors, practice thinking like an attacker, look at the architect's trade-offs, and wrap up by preparing for Byzantine faults.
All right, jumping right into Section 1, consensus security and the delicate balance it requires.
Moving right along to Section 2, meet the threat actors. Basically, our lineup of usual suspects.
Now, every heist needs a crew, right? Let's check out the specific attack vectors trying to crack our vault. Suspect number 1 is the classic double spend. This is where an attacker maliciously convinces the network to accept two conflicting histories, which lets them spend the exact same digital asset twice. It's literally like handing a merchant a forged $100 bill, grabbing your goods, and then exploiting the tiny window of uncertainty before the bank finalizes everything to just magically erase the payment.
Next up, suspect number 2, the replay attack. This happens when an attacker takes a perfectly valid message or transaction and reuses it in a completely different context. Imagine grabbing your VIP pass from last year's hottest club and trying to use it to walk right into a brand new club tonight. In the blockchain world, our main defense against this is something called domain separators. You can kind of think of domain separators as the bouncers who actually bother to check the date and the venue printed on your ticket.
And you know, this brilliantly illustrates the fundamental shift between our two main consensus paradigms. With proof of work, an attack is basically just a brutal arms race of raw computing power. You're just trying to mine a longer private chain faster than the honest network. But in proof of stake, the game totally changes. Attackers shift away from out-computing people and move toward equivocating, bribing the guards, and colluding to manipulate the votes.
Here's a fun, if slightly terrifying fact. Majority control does not always require outright majority ownership. No way. A highly coordinated, coalitional minority can gain completely disproportionate influence. Using tactics like selfish mining or stake leasing, a smaller, highly organized crew can effectively censor or manipulate the entire vault. They don't need to buy the whole bank. They just need to compromise the right managers.
Which brings us to Section 3, thinking like an attacker. Getting inside the criminal mind.
To really understand how they pull these heists off, you gotta forget the Hollywood stereotype of a chaotic hacker just frantically mashing a keyboard in a dark room. Real blockchain attackers are cold, calculating economists. They weigh every single variable. Let's walk through the exact 4-step mental loop of an attacker trying to trick a merchant who's waiting for, say, 6 confirmations. First, they estimate the probability that they can even create a conflicting chain in that time frame. Second, they calculate expected gains, the actual monetary payout of the fraud. Third, they estimate their slashing risk, the devastating financial ruin they'll face if they get caught. And finally, they decide whether to attempt this privately by withholding blocks or publicly by just bribing validators.
So the crucial point here is captured perfectly in the attacker's feasibility matrix. An attack is only going to happen when the thief's resource control plus their information advantage fundamentally outweighs their cost exposure. If the threat of having their entire deposit slashed is high enough, the math simply doesn't support the crime, and they walk away.
All right, Section 4, the architect's trade-offs. Let's look at how we actually balance the security. Now that we know exactly how the thieves operate, let's pivot back to the protocol designer's dilemma. If you look at this engineering blueprint, you've got all these dials: block time, quorum threshold, validator set size. If you crank up the speed dial by decreasing block time, boom, throughput goes up. But you inadvertently lower your security by increasing orphan rates, and you hurt decentralization because smaller nodes just can't keep up. Every single choice has an unavoidable cost.
Take a look at the effective number of validators here. If you design your system so that the stake naturally centralizes into just a few massive slices, sure, the vault becomes incredibly fast since fewer guards need to coordinate, but bribery and network capture become dangerously cheap. You've literally made the attacker's job easier by shrinking their target list.
To fight back against this, architects often bolt on strict rules called finality gadgets. These guarantee a block cannot be reversed, totally stopping double-spend thieves dead in their tracks. But, you guessed it, another trade-off. While these strict rules stop the bad guys, they might accidentally lock honest customers out if the system experiences a network partition. You protect the assets for sure, but you severely harm the network's liveness.
And finally, Section 5, preparing for Byzantine faults, diving into the mathematical models.
Let's bring this blueprints to a close by connecting these practical heist mechanics to the formal mathematical fault models we'll be studying in upcoming modules. Every protocol designer needs to fire off these 3 core principles to govern smoothly. 1. Map your parameters directly to attacker cost. Make sure every single change makes the crime more expensive. 2. Think in axes. Always measure resources, information, and exposure. 3. Use hard metrics over instincts. Monitor actual equivocation rates rather than just going with your gut feeling.
So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. If every security choice is fundamentally a trade-off, what are you willing to sacrifice to keep your vault safe? Are you giving up lightning speed? Are you sacrificing true decentralization? It really is the ultimate puzzle. To master this puzzle and to dive into our wider learning programs covering these Byzantine fault models, I highly encourage you to visit forge.college to learn more about this subject and a ton of other fascinating Web3 topics. Thanks for joining me for this explainer from Forge College, and keep building securely.